So first interview of the day is with our keynote speaker, Susan Panico from Sony PlayStation Networks. And why don't you give us sort of the quick takeaway of what you wanted people to learn from your presentation?
Well, the biggest thing I wanted people to see how PlayStation Network is this dynamic, ever-changing entertainment hub that helps us transcend life cycles, whether it be a PlayStation 3, the upcoming PlayStation Vita, or as we've seen with PlayStation Suite, we also have content available for Android phones.
First of all, how many people are sort of regularly on a daily basis, on a PlayStation, and then what percentage of those people are doing things besides just gaming?
So on PlayStation Network, we have a really engaged audience. More than 2/3 of them game online at least weekly. About 76% of them use an aspect of PSN at least once a week. And we've seen that our community on PlayStation Network interacts with at least 3 touch points on a weekly basis. So whether that's Facebook, Netflix, or playing a game online, they're highly engaged.
Now, in terms of content on the PlayStation Network, you have sort of 2 types of content. One is content partnerships with the Netflix of the world, the DirecTVs. Are they approaching you to pitch you of, hey, we'd love to be on your platform, then you negotiate individual deals? And then secondly, with content, you're actually producing your own in-house content. So I was wondering if you could talk about sort of how that started, and now that you're a content producer, are those content assets breaking even, making money for the company?
A lot packed into that question. So with our video partners and service partners, there's been a lot of mutual seeking of one another, because I think partners realize that the technological prowess of the PlayStation 3 helps them do things that they just can't do on any other device. And of course, when I talked about the idea of bringing as much choice to our audience as well as curating content, it's really important to bring a lot of relevant partners like a Netflix or Hulu Plus, MLB TV, NHL, or DirecTV's NFL Sunday Ticket to the PlayStation Network fan base.
Can you envision a time where, Comcast is an MSO, but in markets where they're not participating, could you imagine a scenario where they would create sort of an app that could layer on top of your platform?
Well, I think our partnership with DirecTV is really pointing towards a direction like that, where we've helped DirecTV bring NFL Sunday Ticket to a lot of consumers, say a kid in a college dorm room, for example, that may not have a satellite dish on his building. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to help partners bring content to where they might not be today.
How about this? Are you having conversations with the Comcasts and the Coxes and the Cablevisions of the world right now, or Verizons, or?
So, of course, we always want to be open, and we're talking to a lot of people, but there's nothing to formally announce at this time.
Thought I could get that out of you.
They have me well trained.
All right, so on to your internally produced content. I think it's interesting that you are actually a content, well, you've always been a content company with the movies, but in terms of sort of these episodic series, like you have some gaming series, do you want to talk about sort of what the internal decision making was to actually launch those, and how they're doing now, and how they're, I think one of the things you mentioned in your presentation was that you wanted to have sort of some original programming that you can only get on the PlayStation, and I think that fits that bucket, right?
Well, that actually harkens back to our roots with Sony having a lot of media entities, whether it's Sony Pictures or Sony Music. And then even with the advent of PlayStation, we looked at creating games that you can't get anywhere else. So we had a lot of content that would be massive blockbuster hits like a God of War, but we also reached out to independent game developers to bring content like Flower or Flow, or games that you just won't find anywhere else. So we took that same philosophy and brought that into original programming. And I mentioned during my keynote, we also looked aspirationally at a company like HBO, who's had a great long run at developing pop culture iconic content. And so that's what we're striving for. So we created original programming that taps into that gamer lifestyle and keeps it really close to the things that they know and love within PlayStation, but we bring them, an entertainment showcase, an interactive digizine, or a reality show like The Tester.
Yeah, I mean, I think, HBO is your case study. They originally started by just showing other people's movies, and then the original programming sort of started to really take off.
Right.
If I'm a Coca-Cola or a Procter & Gamble or another big sort of CPG advertiser, and my marketing team or my agency comes to you and says, we're intrigued by the PlayStation platform as sort of a way to capture engaged consumers, what can we do with you? So pretend I'm the media buying agency for Procter & Gamble, pitch me.
Right. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that you understand who our consumer is so that we can let you know what you're getting yourself into. And that is a highly concentrated male demographic, 18 to 34, that has an insatiable appetite for media and engagement. But what's really important is that we want to know, what are your goals? What are the things that drive your brand values, that you want to communicate for your brand, and what are the top 3 priorities that you're trying to achieve by talking to our audience. And then with that, I would love to show you all of the opportunities that we have on PlayStation Network. So we can have your brand appear in-game. We could also create a lot of...
And are those games that are they Sony titles, or could these be third-party titles as well?
They could be third-party titles as well.
So these games sort of have ad delivery hooks built into them.
Correct.
So when somebody's running, their car is in the, Formula One race, there's actually a billboard where you can then serve up and swap out new advertisers.
That is correct. So we work with 2 partners in that space. And then,
who are the 2 partners?
So we work with IGA and Double Fusion, and these are great partners to help bring the ad serving technology and the sales partnership to in-game advertising.
All right, I'm Coke. I want to let 18 to 34-year-old male gamers know that they could be staying up for like 6 days on end playing their favorite games and watching movies with my sugary soft drinks. So where else can I get in front of those people?
Right. So here's what's great with PlayStation Network is we can develop from scratch something like a mini game that would integrate your brand into an interactive branded experience with our consumer. So again, in knowing what message you're trying to deliver and what type of experience you're looking for, and what window you want to be in, we could go to our deep library of gaming content and handpick, either something from the biggest release coming out, like an Uncharted, or something a little bit more quirky, and build an entire mini game around it. We could build an event in PlayStation Home that makes people work together in a community fashion. They could go on scavenger hunts. They can reap rewards from your brand. We also have probably more traditional display type advertising right on the device. It's called What's New, and that's where millions of people come every single week to check out what's going on across PlayStation Network.
And this is before I decide, I log in and I haven't gone to the gaming area or the movies area or the DirecTV area. This is like the first dashboard I see.
Correct. It's the first screen that you see, and it gives you about 9 different tiles to see everything that's going on. Another interesting way that we can engage the brand is through original programming. So the Tester is a great example. In the past, Ford integrated the cars. We also integrated full episode tasks around a brand as well. So the important thing is not that we do any one of these in a silo, but we do these all across the network simultaneously, so the impact is there. So then when that user is going to 3 different touch points on any given week, they're seeing the brand in a lot of different places.
With a DirecTV or some other content company, if they're serving ads, is that sort of their direct relationship with advertisers and the people consuming DirecTV on your platform, or do you sometimes insert your own ads in there, or is that once DirecTV's app is on your platform, can they sort of do whatever they want?
So we have slightly different deals with a lot of different content partners, but basically if they want to serve their own ads, they have to follow our ad guidelines. So we do have parental controls on the PlayStation 3, but we also have advertising guidelines that we like our partners to follow.
So when an advertiser approaches you and they're a family-friendly brand like Coca-Cola, can they buy either across the game network or sort of target the like PG games?
So because we have such a broad library of content, we're able to really customize solutions around the brand goals for any given client or advertiser. So for example, Little Big Planet is one of our hugest games, but it's also appropriate for all audiences and for children alike. So a company like Toyota, we were able to create a mini game within PlayStation Home called Little Big Prius, where people were able to play this game in little mini Priuses. So that's a really good example of bringing a title that has broader appeal and is family friendly.
And on that front, so it seems like you have a whole internal creative services team that when Toyota says, we love that idea, and they write you a check, your internal team basically goes to work sort of brainstorming the game concept loosely around whatever the big title is.
Right. So that's something that's very unique to us, is that when an advertiser says, okay, go, our internal team does get together, and our ad sales team is headed by a gentleman who's been in the video game industry for probably 30 years. And he used to be on the publishing side for editorial. So he's a hardcore gamer, he knows games, and he gets together with a broader group. We have an extended external sales force that is our partner, Sony Pictures TV digital ad sales. So it is a mouthful. So my friends at SPTV, they're wonderful, and we work very closely with them to ideate these larger packages.
In terms of sort of the hacking stuff that recently went on, you can only do the best you can do as Sony. It's like we got punched in the face, but how is sort of the transition out of sort of that mess? Like, what's the feeling internally? What's sort of the reaction of the network community? Like, have people sort of moved past it? Are you still in sort of appeasement mode?
So in regards to the security breach that we experienced earlier this year, I'm really happy to say that we have 100% of our pre-outage audience back on PlayStation Network. And in fact, we've added, I think we had 133% growth since the network was back on. So we know, particularly with the price drop of the PlayStation 3 to $249, that we have a ton of people buying consoles and coming back onto PlayStation Network. And you know, our audience was extremely supportive. We have a very loyal fan base, and they're the most important thing to us. And for the most part, they really just wanted to get back on and play their games online and have access to all of that great content that we have for them. So, you know, a huge thank you to our audience for being, first, very forgiving, but also being there with us through all of it. But now, as you saw from the presentation today, you see how highly engaged the audience is. They're playing games online, they're streaming movies, they're checking out comics, they're doing a ton of entertainment options all through PlayStation Network. So we are only looking forward and are looking at how we can continue to add more entertainment options to our audience.
Yeah, and I think the reason I asked that question is because, you know, shit happens to every brand, and it's sort of how you react. And, you know, I assume you guys did a very good job of just being sort of authentic and like, you know what, we're really sorry about this. We're trying to figure it out and make sure it doesn't happen again. And so that's something I think other brands can learn from.
I think, I'm not sure if you saw our press conference at E3, where our CEO, Jack Tretton, went up on the stage, and he had acknowledged and made an apology to our audience, and that came straight from his heart. It wasn't scripted, and if you listen to that, that was truly a reflection of how I think a lot of us at the company really felt.
Well, Susan, I appreciate the time you took with me, and it was great to sort of see what Sony's up to these days, and I look forward to getting back to my PlayStation when I get back to New York.
Great, thank you for having me today.